Hey, Coach. Wanted to just ask you about just the connection that you've seen over the season and even in the playoffs between Matthew Stafford and Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, I think it's been great, Nick. Kevin is such a great communicator. They spend a lot of time together, and Kevin does a great job leading the way for our offense, but also he and Zach Robinson with the quarterback room in particular. And then during games, those guys have so much communication and dialogue. And while I'm still kind of up there looking at defense and what's going on in the kicking game, Kevin and I are in constant dialogue as well as with Matthew. But their rapport, you can see they have a great relationship, but there's mutual respect and they positively push each other. And, those are two guys that are instrumental and big reasons why we're in this position, Nick.
Thanks, Coach.
You got it.
Claudia.
Hey, Sean, you faced some very good offenses with great running backs like Mitchell, receiver Deebo Samuels. How much does that prepare you for Joe Mixon and Joe Burrow? Or are the Bengals too different to compare?
Well, you know what? They're great players, from the Niners that you're mentioning. And, we played a lot of great players, but the Bengals do have a great group of skill players. They're excellent on offense. They play a little bit differently than the 49ers, just in terms of their overall approach for, some of the different concepts and things they activate, personnel groupings. But Zac Taylor does a great job. Obviously Joe Burrow's a special player at the switch. I think Mixon's one of the more complete players in this league at the running back spot. And then Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd present arguably as good of a 11 personnel grouping from the receiver spot as there is in this league.
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome.
Mike.
Yeah, I got a local question for you, Sean. You got 6 guys on your team that are from Southern California playing at home in the big game here in the Super Bowl. So for guys like Eric Weddle, Greg Gaines, David Long, Matthew, even Robert Woods, I know who's on the IR, and Coleman, have you noticed anything or seen anything this week, even if it's like with ticket requests from people locally, that makes it extra special for them?
Yeah, I think this moment, because in some form or fashion, even if guys didn't grow up here, this is home, and I got a lot of guys love that. I tell these guys these are champagne problems. These tickets are hard to come by, but there are a lot of requests. This is special to a lot of people, but I think this team is so special, Michael. These guys really care about one another. They're doing everything in their power to put together, a couple good weeks of preparation so that we can really put an exclamation point on this season in a positive way against an excellent challenge. But I think it has been special. It's been kind of a whirlwind, really for everybody. And I told my fiance, if I have to answer a question about tickets, then that person is not getting any.
Thanks, Sean.
Jordan.
Hey, Sean, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks. Your coaching tree every single year draws so much attention. I'm sure you get a lot of phone calls every year, and your guys are getting head coaching positions, including, Zach, who you're facing, obviously, next week. But I wonder, as the years kind of have passed, what sort of responsibility that means you've had to assume in that regard, in terms of placing new candidates, and also what responsibility, if any, that you've learned that you have in terms of helping to diversify the pool of candidates in the NFL?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. I think number one, I almost think it's a little ridiculous when you talk about the tree because, these guys are coworkers where we positively pour into one another. I just happen to be in the role that I'm in, but whether it's Kevin, Brandon Staley, Zac Taylor, Matt LaFleur, I learned more from them than those guys have from me. And I think they've been instrumental parts of a lot of the things that have been right. The players are what make this place so special. And then when you have success, because you're around great players and great coaches, that leads to opportunities that I've been so fortunate enough to have here and for these guys to be able to grow their careers. And it's one of the most rewarding things. It does create some good positive stress, but it also opens up opportunities, Jordan, to get exposure to new special coaches. 2 years ago, I didn't know Kevin O'Connell and Brandon Staley. Matt LaFleur and I go way back, but when I first got here, I didn't know Zac Taylor. And then, you're talking about the Eric Hendersons of the world, the Thomas Browns, getting a chance to reconnect with Raheem Morris, Ejiro Evero, who's going to get a chance to move on to a bigger role. These are special things and these are special men. But I think it is important to be intentional about identifying the greatest coaches that you can to be able to have a positive environment where we're pushing each other in the right way. But you want to be around ambitious people. And I think it is important, to be able to continue to identify great coaches from all different types of backgrounds, because we've got them on this staff. I've been around a lot of these guys. And I think it's something that the NFL wants to be intentional about, continuing to diversify these staffs, especially in some of those leadership roles with the opportunities that, are too few right now. But I know I've been around a lot of great coaches of a lot of different backgrounds. We have them on this coaching staff, and I feel really grateful. And that's why people have gotten opportunities, because it's about the people and that make this place so special, Jordan.
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll get to these locals and come back to some of the other out-of-town guys. So, Tim.
But it's exhausting having to replace all my guys every year. I'll tell you that much.
Hey, Coach, I want to stick on that theme a little bit. So when Zac was here, you guys were kind of like the young wonder kids, you know what I mean? So were you guys like buddies, like, young coaching buddies? What was your relationship like? And then also with that, what do you think about potentially being the youngest coach to ever win the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think here's what I would say, Tim. I looked at Zac. I knew him from afar because I respected him as a player when he was balling at Nebraska, Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. And then when he got into coaching, I kind of like to see other guys that are around my age. And we had met, just briefly at some of the league functions, but I was so impressed with the way that he handled himself when Dan Campbell took over as the interim head coach in Miami, and then Zac ascended to the offensive coordinator spot. And those are always challenging things when you've got loyalty to Joe Philbin, and how do you really manage those dynamics? And I thought he handled it so gracefully. Thought he did a great job. And I really wanted to get a chance to be able to work with him and learn from him. And it was 2 great years. He's a special coach. He's a great competitor. He's got a great way about himself with the players. I think his even-keeled demeanor and disposition really shows with the way that his team plays. And it was really, I have tremendous respect for him. And it was awesome being able to work with him for those couple years. And I know he's going to do everything in his power to get after us, and we're going to do everything to try to get after him. And, I'm just taking it a day at a time, and fortunate to be in this position with a great group of players and coaches that I love and care about, and want to do everything I can to help us finish this thing off.
Thanks.
Hey, Sean, earlier this week, Cooper Kupp affectionately said you walk a fine line of unhealthy. And he said no one he'd rather play for when it comes to preparation. But he also brought up an anger shark. Wondering if you explain what an anger shark is from your standpoint, and is that a danger to be unhealthy with coaching with an extra week?
Yeah. For number one, Cooper knows me very well. I think very competitive. I can get a little worked up. If you've ever seen the movie Anger Sharks with Adam Sandler, that's, where I try to say, I'm not upset, but I can feel the anger shark swimming. And really it's a result of the competitiveness, but he's right, and I think this is the best place I've been because of this team in terms of being around great players, great coaches that positively push you. And you do want to compete to the best of your ability, but you don't want to lose sight of enjoying it, having some joy in that journey. And, we've talked about that before, Kurt, but it's reminding yourself in the midst of some of the stressful moments to not lose sight of the real purpose for why you do it. It's for these players, for these coaches that you care and you love about. And anytime you're reminded of that, it really brings you back to an even-keeled demeanor and disposition that's reflective of being the best coach you can be. But he knows me very well. I'm comfortable to be vulnerable with Cooper, but guys like him are why you coach, why I love this so much. I think he probably said it best.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Maria.
Hey, Sean, when you think back to the coaching staff you have now, especially Raheem Morris, what do you think you have learned most from working with Raheem?
I just think the ability to communicate with people in a direct manner that brings people with him instead of really distances yourself from him. He's got such a great way of being able to deliver tough information in a way that's received the right way. And I think that's a credit to, one of the underrated qualities and traits of any great coach is emotional intelligence. And he's got as good of emotional intelligence as anybody I've been around. He's a great leader. He's got such a charisma and a presence and a great feel for when to inject humor, but he's very demanding and direct with people. And I think being around him has taught me to be more direct. Sometimes I think, your fears when you're in these leadership roles is telling people things that maybe they don't like because you want to be liked. And I think that Raheem's refreshing security that he has within himself and his ability to connect, but also command and be demanding, but not demeaning is what makes him so special. And, he's a close friend, but I just feel really grateful to be working with him. And it's been outstanding, Maria, and he's done such a great job for us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gerard.
Coach, let me say congratulations on Sunday night, first and foremost. And
thank you.
Secondly, 4 years ago, you were going up against another extension of the Patriot dynasty. This, 10 days from now, you've got an up and coming Bengals squad that is probably maybe arrived a little bit early than people thought. But what I'm curious is, and I know the preparation of X's and O's is obviously going to be a lot different, but what I want to know is, from that first experience 4 years ago, is there anything that you took out of that in your overall preparation that you're going to do differently this time with the entire group, with your team?
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit different just because, you don't have as many media obligations and some of the COVID restrictions. So I think it's important to, specifically allocate the game plan over the next 2 weeks in a way that's digestible and very clear for the players, but not feeling like you got to overwhelm them early on in the week. What I thought I did a mistake of the last time was you have the mindset that we want to put the majority of it in before we travel to Atlanta. But in the back of my head, I always knew I had another week, and you're tweaking and different things like that. And I think I tinkered with that too much. Being able to trust, having a process with how you study the film. There's 20 games of inventory. You can drive yourself crazy if you watch too much, but being able to specifically delegate the time appropriately, put your players in what you think is the best spots, but not chase ghosts with having those 2 weeks. And remember, it's about these guys and having confidence. And I think it's trusting the players, trusting yourself, and trusting everybody around you, just to be in the moment and then let them go play with a quieted mind on Sunday the 13th.
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome.
Gary.
Hey, Sean, I got a kind of a combination question for you. In regard to Kevin, in layman's terms, what have been his main responsibilities, with you, and why do you think he'll be a good head coach when he gets the opportunity? And then in terms of Matthew Stafford, on Super Bowl Sunday, how do you prepare him for separating the magnitude of the event with just going out there and playing a game?
Yeah, so I think the first thing with Kevin, Kevin is truly the offensive coordinator, does a great job, working in coordination with the rest of the offensive coaches to put together the game plans, to lead a lot of the different meetings. He also is heavily responsible for running a lot of the quarterback meetings, where he's heavily involved with Matthew, with John Walford, with Bryce Perkins and Zach Robinson. But everything that is encompassing of leading our offense, helping put together the game plans, and really, how we operate on game day. So he's done a great job. Why I think he'll be a great coach is I think he's a great leader. I think he's got great capacity and command for this game. He's got a great ability to relate to the players and be able to connect with them. And I think one of the most important things as a coach, Gary, is, do those players know that you care about them, and can you make them a better football player? And Kevin checks both of those boxes. He's got a great way about himself with people. He's got phenomenal character. And so I can't say enough good things about him and how fortunate I've been to have gotten to know him the way that I had over these last couple of years. And he's been vital to our success as a team and offensively. And I really lean heavily on him. As far as Matthew goes, Gary, I just think he's got such a great way about himself. It's his first Super Bowl, but, it's a big game, but there's been a lot of big games he's been a part of, and he's done an outstanding job leading this team in our first 3 playoff games. I think he's at his best when he's enjoying the moment, playing cool, calm, and collected, being that great competitor and bringing people with him. And that's exactly what he'll do. And, we're going to be connected every step of the way, but I'm not worried about him. I just want to make sure that, we're on the same page. He feels good about everything that we're asking him to do, and just let him go, let it rip.
Sean.
Hey, Coach. What's the most unique aspect of your relationship with Matthew? And then also, last couple of games, at the conclusion of the game, you kind of ran straight to him on the field after Tampa and after the game against the Niners Sunday. What's the significance of those moments, and what are you maybe trying to message, or you trying to get across to him at that time?
Yeah, until you said that, I didn't even really realize that. I think number one, we have a real authentic relationship and friendship, Rashawn. And I think that started when we first met in Cabo. We knew of each other and had kind of casually passed one another, but I really enjoy being around him. He's a great guy. He's fun to be around. He's got a great family. And so number one, we really enjoy each other. And I think that's opened up avenues for us to be able to have real conversations, have comfort in some of the conflict that can exist between a quarterback coach relationship, where I think the people that you're closest with, you can tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And I love that. I didn't even realize that I was doing that the last couple games, but I think it's just because that was what came to my mind in the moment, because I'm so happy for him and so appreciative of him. And so it's been a special relationship. It's gotten stronger as we've gone, and really grateful for him, Rashawn.
Modesty.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Sean. And when Kevin Demoff was talking with us yesterday, he was kind of marveling at how much the roster has turned over in the 3 years since the last Super Bowl. I know you talk about how every year's team is a new team, but does it strike you too that this has been a lot of change for what was a really good team? And what does it say about the Rams and the approach that you've been able to do this and pull it off?
Well, I think number one, change is inevitable, as you know, like we've talked about before, Kevin. But I think, those players that were a part of that 18 team are still foundational parts of this team. Aaron Donald, the Andrew Whitworths, Tyler Higbee, even though Cooper was injured, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, even though he's injured now, he was vital to that. Rob Havenstein, Johnny Hecker. So there's a lot of guys that are key and critical to our success. And I think that leadership, that foundation that's built, they bring people with them. And I think Les and his group and our coaches have done a great job of identifying some other players that fit as you're looking to replace people. I think we've gotten some really key contributors on some of the moves that we made that there's been a lot of conversation about, whether it be Matthew, Von Miller, Odell, even looking at the way that Eric Weddle has injected an amazing amount of positive energy, looking at being able to re-sign Leonard Floyd, adding Jalen Ramsey since then. And so there's been a lot of good decisions that have been stacked on one another. Certainly they haven't all been perfect, but I think there's been more good decisions than there have been bad. And you're betting on the people and our players and coaches and personnel. We're all pushing and pulling that rope in the same direction. And I think that's critical for any sort of team. And I'm just grateful to be back in this position with an opportunity to try to finish it out the right way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right.
Yeah, Sean, obviously receivers have had a long history of being productive for the Rams, and there was a bit of a drought in that regard before you got there. How important was it for you to get that position right for what you wanted to build there, and what were specific things you were looking for to find the right guys?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say, Nick, is I think when you're looking at your receiving group, I think you want to almost have complementary pieces of one another, similar to a basketball team. And what we had when we first got here, was a great group of guys. When you look at three guys that really accentuated each other's skill sets, Sammy Watkins, Robert Woods, and Cooper Kupp, they all were really complete receivers, but they did do some elite things a little bit differently. And I think they positively pulled from one another. Then you add Brandon Cooks when Sammy left for the Chiefs. And I thought those three guys were three of the most special receivers I've ever been around. And you talk about a healthy competition, the way they competed without the ball, the way they took the great traits from each other and implemented into their game. I think the toughness, the competitiveness of a Robert Woods, the polish of a Cooper Kupp, the speed, of a Brandon Cooks, and the ability to be able to explode in and out of cuts. They were able to pull from one another, but they all had nice complementary skill sets. I think you add Odell to the mix and you look at Cooper and what he's asserted himself as, and it's ever evolving, but ultimately the quarterback has a huge say in that. I thought Jared did a great job of distributing the ball. The tight ends are a part of that question as well, Nick, with Higbee and Gerald Everett in previous years. And certainly Matthew's rapport with these players has been vital to our success. I mean, I think it's as impressive as anything what Kendall was able to do last week in the NFC Championship. but also real credit to Matthew, but those guys making the plays. But I could go on and on about it, Nick, but ultimately you're looking for guys that complement each other's skill sets based on what specific, spot you're talking about. But they're great competitors that love football. And those are, you're checking the box with all those guys that we have.
Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
And a zero.
Hey, Sean, thanks for doing this. I want to go back to Zac for a second. When you first met him and watched him coach, was there any one thing that stood out, or a couple of things that stood out where you thought, this guy was head coaching material? And just as a follow to that, are there any similarities between the way you guys operate, other than your age, so to speak?
Yeah, I think number one, you could see he had tremendous upside. There's certain people when you're around, they're just so comfortable in their own skin. They're so humble, but there's a confidence that is there that, there's a lot of stuff going on. And he had great command of the game. He was just always such a joy to be around. And he did a great job of whatever role it was that was asked of him. He owned it. And he did a great job of really taking whatever was asked, and he made it even better than what you had asked. He kind of redefined every role. And that's what I think anybody that's great at what they do, does, is they take, all right, hey, here's a general job description, and I'm going to elevate it because that's just the way that I approach things. The least surprising person when he did get the head job was me, because I knew if a team had an open mind, that he would really come off impressive, because he's so well thought out. He's such a great leader. And I think he's so refreshingly comfortable in himself. He's got great capacity for the game. I think we both go about it the same way in terms of we're both really competitive. He's probably more calm than I am, but I'd like to think, he's such a great person. He's got high character, high capacity. Players love him. I love Zac. I'm so happy for him. And, I'm glad we're going against each other, but we're going to do everything in our power to try to finish this off. And I know he feels the same way, but him and his family, it's a real testament to just the resolve, the resilience, what he's gone through. And I can't say enough about, not surprised, but just how impressed I've been with the job that he's done for 3 years, not just this year, for those first couple years, looking at the way that team competed in the midst of adversity, I think says as much about Zac Taylor as anything that they've done this year as well.
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome.
Alanis.
Hi, Sean. A lot of players are mentioning the importance of treating this game like a regular, normal game, but I'm wondering what you think is the best way to mitigate those two aspects of understanding and valuing the magnitude of this moment, especially with the Super Bowl being in LA, but not allowing the magnitude of the moment to distract you from the ultimate goal of winning the game.
Yeah, I think you just said it perfectly. I think let's have a great couple weeks of preparation where it gives guys a chance to go in and play with a quieted mind, trust themselves, and go play to the best of their ability. You're not going to minimize what a great opportunity these players have earned. And that's what I really emphasize. They've earned this opportunity. Allow yourself to enjoy it, but be totally and completely present. Be in the moment, truly one play at a time. I think that's what our guys have done throughout the playoffs, Alanis. And if they do that, good things will happen. But I think if you prepare the right way, you can have a quieted mind while also not minimizing. Man, what an incredible opportunity it is. Go enjoy that op, compete to the best of your ability, and have no regrets. And that's what we're all going to do.
Kaylin.
Hey, Sean, thanks for the time. This is piggybacking off Modesty's question earlier, but when you're building, your team, obviously all the stars get, the attention, but when you talk about some of the glue guys that you guys have been able to attain, over the past 3-4 seasons, how important is, getting a solid roster foundationally to, then build around with superstars in order to get to this point?
Yeah, it's been big, and I think I've learned a lot from Les and his group and his ability to collaborate with our coaches and really have a vision for there's different avenues for acquiring players, whether that be through, undrafted free agency. You've used this comp formula to pick up extra picks, identifying the guys that really fit and fill out the roster based on some of the voids and vacancies if players have left or if we're moving on from somebody. And, it puts it I don't want to say it puts pressure, but you do end up being a little bit top heavy, but it is about the team. And I think the best thing about a lot of those guys that are in those significant roles, they elevate everybody around them. They bring people with them. They fully embrace that opportunity. But I think it's a real credit to having a vision for the types of players that we want to onboard here. The guys that love football, that are passionate about it, that have the makeup physically and mentally that fit based on, whatever role that we're going to put them in, and the vision. I think we have a vision for every player that we onboard. There's buy-in. I think those players feel appreciated. They feel like we want to do everything to help them reach their highest potential. And confidence and belief is a powerful thing, even in pro sports, and people feeling believed in, people feeling like everybody's in their corner. They're willing to put their arm around them, even when they're going through some adversity. And I think our players do that, our coaches do that, and really this organization. And it's been something that you always learn from, both the good and the bad. And I'm just really grateful to have great partners and people that I'm doing it with.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Three left was go Legwall, Joe, and then Stacy.
Yeah, Sean, I just wanted to ask you if how much interaction did you have ever with Von Miller before the trade? And does it mean anything to you or your team that he is a player who has played maybe his best game in the biggest moment of his career?
Yeah, so I had a little bit of interaction with Von, just, in passing, whether it be after games or when I've run into him out here in LA when he spent some time here in the off season, and just nothing but a joy in those kind of small conversations. But since he's been here, he has brought such a positive vibe. He's really pushed people. Aaron Donald even alluded to, Von has positively pushed him to elevate his leadership. But Von, absolutely that matters. The way that he played in those moments when they won the Super Bowl in Denver, Super Bowl MVP. We talk about competitive greatness all the time, being your best when your best is required. I think he's illustrated that through the playoffs here. But he has been, I can't say enough good things about Von Miller as a person, the way he handles himself, and how important it is to try to do everything in his power to help this team win a championship. And guys believe that. His track record speaks for itself, but his body work, his resume, but the way that he carries himself demands a respect, and you just can't help but love the guy. And he's been outstanding, and we would not be here without him.
Thank you.
Joe.
Sean, with all the talk of anger sharks and anger management, how many times have you found yourself chanting Goose Fraba on the sidelines? But seriously, with
see, you've watched the movie. You got to dunk that.
Seriously, with Kevin O'Connell, Sean, the last 3 weeks with the coaching interviews and everything, how has he done a good job of maybe multitasking and kind of compartmentalizing, preparing for the game, but also, kind of preparing for what his next steps might be?
Yeah, he's done just that, Joe. I think he's done a great job compartmentalizing. I think in a lot of instances now, seeing a couple people go through this, and really Zac was kind of the most recent one where it was in the midst of a similar timing and scenario. And so what you tell these guys is, hey, we're not having every single second that's allocated to the opponent. You still want to be able to have some balance, but do a thorough job. I think it's silly to try to ignore the opportunity that you do have. You definitely want to own that, do a great job, but compartmentalizing is the key. Hey, let's be totally locked in on preparing to the best of your ability within the framework of your role for the Rams. But man, if you get an opportunity to go compete for one of these head jobs, these are so precious, go shoot your shot and give it your best. And, the best part about it is a lot of these things that you do as a coach prepare you for those interviews. People prepare presentations and stuff like that. I would imagine that the best ones go where it becomes more of a conversation and you're talking about things that are passion, that you've been passionate about. Hey, how am I leading? What does a culture look like? What kind of people do you want to be surrounded with? How do you handle the ebbs and flows, navigate through adversity when things aren't looking good? And that's so easy for Kevin to be able to do. And very similar to how I felt about Zac. I knew if he got a chance to interview with some teams with an open mind, that I felt really confident that he would get one. And whether you can unofficially or officially, both he and Zac, I think Kevin will do a really good job, and Zac's obviously done a great job, but it was a very similar situation with both those guys doing a magnificent job of compartmentalizing, but also getting a chance to go compete for a special opportunity that, is a blessing.
Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
We'll wrap up with you, Stacy.
Thanks, Artis. Hey, Sean, congratulations. I have to imagine that when the powers that be brought you and Matthew together all those many months ago, and of course, all of us on the outside are like, oh yeah, this is going to be good. Yeah. You and Matthew had to have conversations surrounding championships and a Super Bowl. Do you recall those early or the earliest conversation in which you envisioned this thing together? And are you urgently enjoying this moment? Because I see the...
Yeah, I know. I'm never going to live that down. Here's the thing I would say, Stacy, that's been great. Both Matthew and I are not naive to the outside in expectations and stuff. As soon as we got partnered up, we had a real relationship that truly was focused on, hey, I had so much confidence in what he could do and how he could elevate the people around him and play at a really high level. But he's just been in the moment, like he is the epitome of just taking it a day at a time, not trying to get too far ahead of yourself. And he's so steady, so consistent. And his consistency, I think, has really helped me. And, if you said, I think if you look at that trade and you say, oh, we got to get to the Super Bowl, that seems overwhelming. But if you take it a day at a time, I think some of the adversities that we navigated through or when we even got closer, you go through a 3-game losing skid. There's a lot of narratives, towards myself, towards him or whatever, where we go a month without winning a game. And, and there's a lot of, criticism that comes our way. He was never fazed by it. We just drew nearer to one another. He just trusted himself, trusted his teammates. And then you just take it a day at a time and here you are. But I don't know if you ever really looked at it in the totality of here's where we've got to get, even though you saw those expectations. But being present, being in the moment, I think has epitomized a big reason why this team is here and why Matthew's been so instrumental in leading us here, Stacy.